One of the iconic players on the 69 Mets is our next guest who's in studio. He had the iconic catch in game number 4. His RBI in the clincher of the deciding game was a huge part of the win. And he has now had a new book that he is releasing as well. That's called Here's the Catch, a memoir of the Miracle Mets and more. Ron Swoboda joining us in studio. Ron, good morning. How we doing?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. We've had a great weekend at Citi Field. It was an amazing time for us 50 years ago. We're getting to relive a little bit of it.
Yeah, and you were saying that once you hit the 50 anniversary, because you guys have always lived in lore in Mets franchise history, in the city of New York, and really baseball lore as well. But once you hit 50, you don't know how often you'll see the guy that you're with again. So was it emotional to be with guys that you don't often see and not know if you'll see again?
Yeah, the mortality factor, hits you right in the face. And I turned 75 years old yesterday. I feel so grateful that I
happy birthday.
Have the energy. You're
welcome.
Right. Thank you, man. It's like 3/4 of a century. I got trees in my yard that are younger than me. It is sort of bittersweet. Tom Seaver couldn't be there, suffering dementia from, exacerbated by Lyme disease, and couldn't leave his Calistoga home. But I was at the dedication of 41 Seaver Way. That was awesome. His daughter, Sarah, there gave a great speech. What an appropriate thing for the Mets to do. But Ed Kranepool spoke for all of us on Saturday and talked to what it meant to us back then and touched all the bases. And he got back to encouraging this year's team, who we all, I follow him. I'm a Met fan, and Eddie lives here in New York, so he knows what's going on there. And we'd like to see them live a dream of their own.
The early Mets were kind of comical. I mean, Casey Stengel and kind of lived in the imagination as this kind of comedy of errors. You got there in 65.
Well, I played for Casey Stengel the first half of 1965, and we were going to lose 100, and every team that Casey had managed from 62 on lost 100. They lost 120 in 1962. That's still the gold standard for Major League ineptitude.
Gold standard of losses.
It is up there, man, and I don't want anybody to touch it. The Orioles this year are a little scary. They're goosing around it, and of course that's my hometown. And I don't want them to touch that record. Like Casey said to the team after that season, "You guys lost 120 games," he said, "but I want you to remember one thing. I don't want anybody here taking it personally." It was a team effort, It was like, it's like, well, yes, it was.
Did you walk into spring training and go, wow, we're really bad in 1965?
I think at that time when you're 19 going on 20 and 20 going on 21, you're like, I'm in the big leagues and we're going to be playing other big league teams.
Yeah.
And the wonder of that and being around a guy like Casey who was a living, walking legend, and
sure.
He knew what his deal was. He knew that his job was to delight the media and give them some good quotes and keep them from turning on the franchise, which he knew was going to be bad until they evolved.
Ron Swoboda joins us for the 1969 New York Mets, celebrating 50 years since then. One of the great moments, one of the iconic moments of that season is when the Black Cat rolls across Shea Stadium in front of the Chicago Cubs dugout, and the Cubs were losing their lead in the standings to you guys. You guys are chasing them down, and a black cat runs out onto the field in front of the Cubs, the cursed Cubs. You guys chase down the Cubs. You win the division, go on to win the World Series. Do you have any idea how the cat got there?
That cat was under the stands. There were other cats under the stands. It came out.
Really?
It came out from underneath there. Something spooked it. It was absolutely freaked out. And what does it do? It just runs back and forth.
Darting in front of the Cubs dugout.
Well, if you look at what happened in our series with the Cubs, who were the team we had to beat in 1969, the games broke on a little play here, a little call there, a base hit that Ed Kranepool gets in the ninth inning to beat them. Little things divided us from the Cubs in our season series. We only beat them one game over, more than would have been 500 between us. So we played tough, intense baseball. And things had not moved in the Cubs' direction. And here, late in September, when they're already in trouble into September, early September, and they're skidding, is this black cat comes out, and it was like it underlined everything. It's like now we got voodoo on our side,
I mean, so you're telling me there was a family of cats that lived under these Shea
They
Stadium?
chased the rats down under the ballpark, and they didn't have to feed them. They were feeding on the mice and the rats underneath the stadium. And of course, there wasn't a lot of love lost between the Mets coaching staff and Leo DeRocher. And when everybody saw that happen, we went, these guys are already going through a bad streak, and now they're looking at this black cat going, yeah, here's why. And
what a wild time in America, too, though, because that July, we finally landed on the moon, and so that's an enormous moment. You have Woodstock going on. You have the 60s, which are kind of in full force, and everything kind of feels, I'm sure, very revolutionary at the time. But then you guys come out of nowhere to win the World Series. Did it all come together in a life where you just looked around and said, boy, times are kind of crazy right now?
It was very fractious back then. Identity politics, as you mentioned, women's lib and civil rights and the Stonewall Inn riots and the Vietnam War and the huge anti-war demonstration. And then in the middle of that, the Woodstock, love generation. What do you mean, do I love you? I love everybody. And they were having fun. And we looked at Woodstock and went, wow. Wouldn't have been fun to be there for about an hour and a half, once it started raining, and the mud came up. But we were in Montreal right at the midpoint in the season, right before the All-Star break, when Neil Armstrong stepped out of that lunar module and took his small step for man, giant leap for mankind. We got to see it live because our United Charter had mechanical problems.
Really? So
we went upstairs to the lounge, and over a couple of drinks, we watched it live on TV, and it was heady. It was like an amazing thing. And what has America done that I was a big fan of space flight and aircraft in general. Those astronauts were heroes of mine on a higher order. And here you're seeing this incredible achievement. And we're in the hunt, we're in this hunt. And the irony was not lost, I don't think, that we can't get from Montreal back to New York, and here's Neil leaving footprints on the moon, It's like, wow, we got a little journey in front of us, too.
Ron Swoboda from the 69 Mets joins us here in studio. Because you had such an important impact on the franchise's first championship, that team lives forever and will live forever. What was it like to be in your 20s and to be a World Series champion in New York City with everybody just gaga over the team?
We mentioned all of the turmoil and chaos and the mayor of New York City, John Lindsay, is in political trouble. We were the feel-good story that everybody could get their head around.
Yeah.
And of course, we were the underdogs. And back then, we seem to like underdogs more than we like them now, and it was incredible, to know that you slapped a smile on a city as big as New York, and that it's endured for these many years.
And you guys kind of define the underdog. I mean, when people talk about the most miraculous champions ever, the team that live for outlore, the 69 Mets will always be there. That's got to be pretty special to always be a part of.
Yeah, I think the improbability of it from, we were 100-to-1 odds, in Las Vegas to win a World Series when we came out of spring training. And I remember Gil Hodges talking to the media back then, who were mostly writers, newspaper writers. That was media back then, and the press. And they were asking him, how many games, what do you think this team can do? And Hodges says, I think they can win 85 games. And me and Ed Kranepool were standing next to one another going, us? Us? 85? He put the carrot out on the end of a pretty long stick, but he was a former Marine. And and an authoritarian. And look, I don't mind telling you, I always struggled with authority a little bit. I don't know why. It just never it never played well with me, and yet I still had the understanding that this guy was one of the most adroit baseball minds going, and all he wanted you to do was act like an adult and make yourself as good a player as you could be, but you had to do it his way.
So we only have about a minute left, but I wanted to ask you, being from Baltimore, to defeat the mighty Orioles in the World Series when you guys were once again enormous underdogs. What was that like?
Look, that's my hometown team. As an amateur, I'd played in Memorial Stadium, and you walk in there to play that first game, I was as nervous as you could be. I let a ball get over my head. I worked so hard on my fielding with Eddie Yost hitting me thousands of line drives and ground balls, and the first ball hit to me, I don't play it well, and I let it get over my head for a home run. Should have been caught. That's how it started. But these Orioles were legit in every way. They won 108 or 9 games that year, and we, and they were favored for very good reasons. But we lost game 1, and Hodges said to us probably the most poignant thing, and he didn't say much to you. He said, boys, you don't have to be anything but the player that got you here. Don't try to be bigger than life is what I'm saying. He didn't elaborate on it. But I think the message got out. It was simple and to the point. Don't try to be bigger than life. Just play this game that got you here, and that'll be good enough, and we win the next 4 straight.
Amazing. Ron Swoboda from the 69 Mets. Before I let you go, you guys had a weekend full of festivities being celebrated at Citi Field, jammed house, people loving it. You guys got to speak and be cheered, but there was an awkward moment where the Mets flashed the in memorial to those that had passed on the team, and they had 2 guys that had not passed. So I guess it's good news that those guys are still with us, but did you get a chuckle out of that? 2 of your former teammates?
The rumor of my passing is greatly exaggerated.
Right.
I'm not dead yet. It's like from the movie, it was, fortunately, I missed that. I heard about it, but I missed that.
I would have thought you guys would get a good laugh out of that.
Those of us who were capable of it probably would have, because to be around now and be able to take all this in is such a blessing.
The book by Ron Swoboda is called Here's the Catch, a memoir of the Miracle Mets and more. It's available. Go out there and check it out because it's a very, very cool book. And for those that remember that time period and that championship and that run and that team, it's a really cool walk down memory lane. So congratulations on writing the book.
Thank you, D.A., and it was fun. And I tried to let people in on the ups and downs and my little run through it. It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
I try to tell it like I lived it.